I used to think discipline meant being tough. Yelling, punishing, taking things away, that was my playbook. I thought that to raise disciplined kids, I had to be the drill sergeant of the family. The louder I got, the more I believed they would listen. But the truth is, they didn't. All that harshness just created a battlefield in our home. It bred fear, resentment, and a whole lot of secrets. I wasn't teaching them discipline. I was teaching them how to avoid me. The atmosphere was always tense, and instead of building character, I was just breaking their spirit. I remember one evening, after a particularly bad shouting match over a messy room, I saw the look in my son's eyes. It wasn't defiance. It was fear and confusion. That was my wake-up call. I realized my approach was a complete failure. I wasn't connecting with my kids. I was pushing them away. I had to find a better way, a way that actually worked. So, I started a journey. I read books, talked to experts, and most importantly, I started observing other families. I was looking for the secret sauce to raising disciplined, respectful kids without turning my home into a war zone. What I discovered changed everything. It wasn't about being harsh or lenient. It was about connection, consistency, and communication. It was about teaching, not punishing. I want to share what I learned with you today, not as an expert, but as a parent who's been in the trenches, made a lot of mistakes, and finally found a path that leads to peace and genuine discipline. This isn't about permissive parenting. It's about effective parenting. It's about building a foundation of trust so strong that your kids want to do the right thing, not because they're scared of you, but because they respect you and themselves. The first and biggest shift I made was from punishment to connection. Think about it. When you feel disconnected from someone, are you more or less likely to cooperate with them? It's the same for our kids. When they feel seen, heard, and valued, their natural desire to cooperate kicks in. Before, my first reaction to a problem was to lay down the law. Now, my first reaction is to connect. If my daughter spills her drink, instead of yelling about her being clumsy, I get down to her level and say, "Oh, that's a big spill. It's okay. Accidents happen. Let's get a towel and clean it up together." Notice the difference? I'm not ignoring the problem. The drink still needs to be cleaned up, but I'm approaching it as a teammate, not an adversary. This small shift diffuses the tension instantly. She doesn't have to get defensive. Instead, we're a team solving a problem. This connection-first approach builds a bank of goodwill. When it's time to set a boundary or enforce a rule, it comes from a place of love and trust, not a place of anger and control. Next, I learned to separate the child from the behavior. This is crucial. Your child is not bad. Their behavior might be challenging or unacceptable, but they themselves are good. Before, I'd say things like, "You are so lazy for not cleaning your room." Now, I focus on the action. I see your room is still messy, and we agreed it would be cleaned by now. What's your plan to get it done? This helps them see that the issue is the mess, not their entire identity. It preserves their self-esteem, which is essential for self-discipline. A child who believes they are bad will often just lean into that identity. But a child who knows they are loved and capable, even when they make a mistake, is much more likely to try and fix it. We need to be their coach, not their critic. We're guiding them to make better choices, not shaming them for the poor ones they've already made. Another game changer was using natural and logical consequences instead of arbitrary punishments. This was a tough one for me because taking away screen time was my go-to move for everything. But what does losing tablet privileges have to do with not putting your shoes away? Nothing. It's a power move, not a teaching moment. A natural consequence is something that happens as a direct result of an action. If you don't wear your coat outside, you will feel cold. A logical consequence is one that is directly related to the misbehavior. If you make a mess with your toys, the logical consequence is that you have to clean them up. If you're late for dinner because you were playing, the logical consequence is that your food might be cold or you have less time to eat before the next activity. These consequences teach real-world lessons. They make sense. They're not about making the child suffer. They're about teaching responsibility. When my kids fight over a toy, the toy gets put away for a little while. The logic is simple. If you can't play with it peacefully together, then you can't play with it at all for now. It teaches them cooperation far more effectively than sending them to their rooms to think about what they've done. Communication also had to change dramatically. I stopped lecturing and started listening. I began holding family meetings. Every Sunday, we sit down for about 15 minutes. We talk about what went well during the week, what was challenging, and we plan for the week ahead. It's a space where everyone gets to speak and everyone's opinion is valued. This is where we set rules together. When kids are part of the rule-making process, they have ownership. They're not just following my rules, they're following our rules. For example, we were having issues with morning routines. Instead of just shouting orders every morning, we sat down at a meeting and I said, "Mornings feel really stressful. What can we do to make them smoother for everyone?" We brainstormed together. My son suggested laying out clothes the night before. My daughter suggested a chart with pictures. We created a plan as a team. The result? They were so much more cooperative because it was their plan. They weren't fighting my system, they were executing their own. And finally, I had to learn the power of modeling the behavior I wanted to see. I can't expect my kids to control their tempers if I'm losing mine all the time. I can't expect them to be respectful if I'm speaking to them disrespectfully. This was the hardest pill to swallow. I had to look in the mirror and work on my own discipline first. When I feel myself getting angry, I now have a new script. I'll say, "I'm feeling really frustrated right now. I need to take a minute to calm down before we talk about this." I'm showing them, not just telling them, how to handle big emotions. I apologize when I mess up. I say things like, "I'm sorry I raised my voice earlier. I was feeling stressed, but that wasn't the right way to talk to you." This shows them that everyone makes mistakes, and the important part is taking responsibility and trying to do better. They see me trying, and it inspires them to try too. This journey has not been perfect. There are still days when I get frustrated, and there are still days when my kids test every boundary. That's life. But the difference is that our home is no longer a battlefield. It's a training ground. We're a team, learning and growing together. The discipline I see in them now is authentic. It comes from within. It's the self-control to clean up a mess without being asked, the empathy to comfort a sibling, and the responsibility to own up to a mistake. It's a discipline born from respect, not fear. And that is so much more meaningful and lasting than anything my old, harsh methods could ever have achieved. It's harder work in the short term. It requires patience, self-reflection, and a lot of deep breaths. But the long-term rewards are a peaceful home and a genuine, loving connection with your kids. That's a trait I would make 1,000 times over. Thank you for watching. I hope this helps you on your own parenting journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. See you next time.